Alright, so first off, I apologize if my voice is a little bit raspy. I am fighting a little bit of a cold right now, but we're going to try and power through it anyway to get this quick video out because, barely even 12 hours removed from what might have been Kevin Durant's best game of his entire NBA career. He had a 49-point triple-double, backpacked his, I don't say backpacked, he got some help from Jeff Green and a little bit of help from the hobble James Harden, but the Nets were clearly outmanned. Bucks had a huge lead and just played some of the worst basketball I've ever seen a team play this late in the playoffs. And overall, the 2021 season is officially falling apart. Injuries have simply just dominated this season like no other, and there's just a whole lot of irony now because the NBA, PA, and just the NBA, head guys in general, they wanted to push the season out and make sure that it got done before the Olympics so that their star players could actually play in the Olympics for once and not have to worry about their. This is where the irony comes in, but the players wouldn't have to worry about their health or resting in the offseason. But because the season was so injury ravaged, a lot of the top players are now deciding to sit out in order to get some extra rest after a absolutely horrendous 2021 game schedule. But I suppose it's also fitting that with our MVP of the season, Nikola Jokic, one of his big advantage points on the other candidates was that he was available for, I forget if it was every game or if it's almost every game, but basically his availability and general just healthiness across the entire season was a big reason of why he won. Obviously, he played amazingly outside of that too and fully deserved the MVP. But again, just the whole theme of irony. It's ironic that the MVP and the champion are going to share that same, factor of just simply just being healthy. I will not be surprised at all if the team that hoists the championship trophy at the end of these playoffs are simply just the team that has had the least amount of injuries during their playoff run. But to get into some of the specific news that we had dropped on us this morning, so in game 4 for the Clippers and the Jazz, we saw Kawhi Leonard exit the game late in the fourth quarter with a knee injury, and since then there hasn't been a lot of noise about it, so I feel like most fans were pretty relaxed and comfortable with the idea that there was nothing wrong. But then we just had an absolute bombshell dropped on us today that Kawhi Leonard, the Clippers fear it might be an ACL related injury and that he is out indefinitely. And before I go any further, I just wanted to get it out there. The Clippers without Kawhi Leonard are not a threat to win a championship. There's just simply not enough talent around the rest of the team. Paul George, as we all know, is very inconsistent come playoff time. And again, this Clippers team just doesn't have a lot of talent. I mean, there's a reason why Kawhi Leonard is the great player he is. He does a lot for his team, and the Clippers just don't have anyone else who can fill those shoes. And I don't care what adjustments are made. I don't care how many minutes Luke Kennard gets. I don't care how many threes Bobby Schmurd is able to rifle off for the rest of the series. The Jazz should win this one pretty handedly, even with Mike Conley still dealing with that hamstring issue. He could probably just wrestle it for this entire series now and be fine for the Western Conference Finals. Jazz can play it safe. They just have to go out there and finish the series off against a much lesser team now. But for the Clippers, at the end of the day, it is just absolutely absurd that the Clippers curse is still striking strong. Obviously, they have not made a conference finals in quite some time now, and that streak will continue as even this year, when things looked like they were going to be as up as ever for the little brother franchise in LA, they still find a way to somehow blow it. And I know it wasn't necessarily them that blew it, it was just bad injury luck. But the point stands, the Clippers curse is absurd. And then if the Kawhi news wasn't enough, NBA fans also received news that Chris Paul has apparently contracted COVID, despite, I saw some reports that he is reportedly vaccinated. So if that's the case and he still got COVID despite being vaccinated, then the CP3 curse might be the only thing that can outweigh the Clippers curse at this point in the NBA timeline. I mean, do you guys remember back in Game 1 against the Lakers for Phoenix when Chris Paul had the shoulder injury, and even though it didn't really end up being too bad just because of how things shook out, at the time, a lot of people were just kind of laughing at it and how the Chris Paul curse struck again. Chris Paul plays the whole season healthy, then gets to the playoffs and immediately gets hurt. Everyone was getting their memes off. But for the most part, it ended up being fine with, like I said, the way things shook out. Little did we know, fast forward a few weeks, and Chris Paul would now be definitely out with something that could be major injury-wise, and he's going to definitely be out at least 10 days, could be 14 days. There is a chance we might not see Chris Paul again in the playoffs, although I think that one might be a little unlikely. I think Dom2K put it best though with this tweet he had earlier today, where he said that the health and safety protocols were just like that one villain that doesn't actually die at the end of the movie and ends up getting one last laugh at the end. And I have no words for that. I mean, that's pretty spot on and accurate, because we really haven't heard anything about the health and safety protocols for quite some time now. I mean, everyone was getting vaccinated, everyone was getting healthy, people were coming back into the stands, we had full crowds. And then out of nowhere, right when we thought we saw the light at the end of the tunnel, the health and safety protocols get one last laugh on who else but Chris Paul. As for the rest of the Phoenix team though, I actually do still have some hope in them. They already beat the Denver Nuggets in 4 games, meaning that they've had plenty of time now, and they will continue to have plenty of time to prep, rest, and get healthy for whichever team they face in the Western Conference Finals, most likely looking like Utah at this point. And obviously, not having CP3 will not only be a huge hit for just the talent level on the Phoenix Suns, but it'll probably be a pretty big confidence hit too, as Chris Paul is just one of those guys that when he's on the court, he can simply just make an entire team better just by simply being out there as a floor general. With that being said though, the Suns still do have their best player available in Devin Booker. He's been absolutely on fire in these playoffs, and I have no doubt in my mind that he will continue to play well. Also, the Suns have Cam Payne, who's been absolutely amazing off the bench as a sub for CP3, and obviously he's not going to be able to fill those shoes, but he can give you some quality minutes. It'll be the bench point guard minutes then that will be a little suspect. I imagine it'll probably be guys like E'Twaun Moore, maybe Javon Carter gets some run, which will be fun to watch. I'm a big Javon Carter guy, just the way that he just absolutely pisses off offensive players on the defensive side of the ball is so fun to watch. But in general, I think the point definitely stands at this point that the Suns without CP3 are a better team than the Clippers without Kawhi Leonard. So while the Jazz, again, might get sort of an easier path to the Western Conference Finals now without Kawhi Leonard, I do think that a Suns-Jazz Western Conference Finals, even with no CP3, and even if Mike Conley ends up playing and gets healthy, I still think that could be a solid 6, maybe even 7-game series. Maybe we see CP3 come back at around like the game 5 point. I'm not sure how the schedule and dates work out, but these are all things that we could see, and I still think that Western Conference Finals could end up being very entertaining. But overall, it just sucks that NBA fans have to have these conversations in the first place, having to debate, which injury-riddled team is better than this other injury-riddled team is just not a fun discussion to have. I'd rather be comparing teams at their full star power and when they're healthy, because we get to see more star players play that way, and there's no excuses other than maybe saying that this player played bad or this coach made the wrong decision. But yeah, injuries suck. At the end of the day, injuries just suck. Even just looking back at all the teams that made the playoffs in this year, we have the 76ers, who have Embiid playing hurt, Danny Green's out. In Milwaukee, you have Dante DiVincenzo, who's out for the rest of the season. You also have Budenholzer, who's currently coaching through a concussion. I don't know if that one's actually true, but with the way he's been coaching, I wouldn't be surprised. In Brooklyn, obviously, you have James Harden, who's now playing like a decoy of himself, along with Kyrie Irving being out. In Atlanta, DeAndre Hunter's been out and ruled out for the rest of the season. For the Knicks, they had Mitchell Robinson out. In Miami, they had Victor Oladipo out for the rest of the season. Boston was out Jaylen Brown, and Kemba Walker missed the last few games of their series. Utah, they currently have Mike Conley out. Donovan Mitchell has been dealing with the ankle injury that he still doesn't look 100% from. In Phoenix, they now have CP3 out. Denver had no Jamal Murray or PJ Dozier, plus a hurt Will Barton. The Clippers had no Ibaka and are now left without Kawhi. And then finally, the Lakers, obviously they had a very much hobbled LeBron James and no Anthony Davis for the remainder of their series as well. And if you were counting along with me, that means that 12 of the 16 teams that made the playoffs at some point or just finished their year without one of their key players, whether it be a starter, just a high-level rotation guy. 12 of the 16 teams that made the playoffs had some sort of injury to deal with. Adam Silver will pay for his crimes. But honestly, even with this crazy news day and just all of the crazy injury stuff that has happened this season, I don't think anything could get quite worse than the fact that the Utah Jazz now look like they're probably the favorites to come out of the West. And just the thought of Rudy Gobert hoisting the championship trophy is a very scary thought. And I guess that officially means that NBA fans are in the darkest timeline. So I hope you enjoy it. I know I might. But yeah, this season sucks.